This
Hey,
conference will now be recorded.
well, this is exciting to have you join me. And my name is Leah Westover. And while you grab a pen and paper, let's go ahead and get to know each other. And I just lost all of you guys. Where did I put you? Nope. Uh-oh. Are you still on here, Austin? 'Cause I
I'm
can't.
here.
Okay.
Yes, we're still here.
I don't know where you went picture-wise, so.
We're in one of the windows there, right?
There's no window. That's what I'm trying to figure. Now I'm subtitling. We're going to go ahead.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Ryan.
Okay. I'm 36. I'm married to the most wonderful lady. Her name is Hillary. We have 4 children. Our oldest is 13, Victor, and then we've got 12, which is Leah. And then we've got 10, which is Gabriel. And then we've got the baby, which is Navy, and she's about 16 months.
Oh, fun. What was her name again?
Navy is our youngest.
Oh, so
And
cute.
And the grandparents still call her Army, so they're just not sure. And there's no joking about it. They're being serious. We, live in South Jordan. Love to be outdoors. Love to get together with family and friends. And that's pretty much us. Trying to figure out how to get my lawn a little bit greener. So if you have any tips on that, let me know.
Yeah, we're working on that. We finally got somebody to come start spraying for us. That finally did it. So,
Well, let me know if that works well. And that's pretty much it about us. So.
good. Austin, what about yourself?
I am also married, have 7 children. Oldest is 13 as well. Youngest is, I always forget how old she is. I guess about a little over 14 months old. She just started walking. So she's officially a toddler. But I live in West Valley. I grew up in Magnus. I grew up close by here, went to Cypress High School. And my wife loves to do gardening. So we're always outside digging. That's what I'm supposed to be doing usually when I'm not working. And we've had some good digging projects this spring already. Dug up quite a bit of things. And but yeah, we're just we like to get out, like to go camping, do things outside. So a little bit about us.
That's fantastic. Just a little memory, my growing up, we had an acre of land in California, and my dad had a big garden, but our chore was to pick up rocks, and those rocks multiplied every night when we went to bed, because every time we went out there, there was more rocks, and I couldn't understand it. It's like we made lots of rock piles. So fun. You guys are in the prime time of your children, and the beauty of discovery, and so excited to have you guys here. Did we have anybody else join us, since I can't see any of you screen?
Not yet. There's no one else.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and then a little bit about myself. As you can tell here, I have we raised 8 children. The oldest is 30, the youngest is 13. And it was quite a journey. When I married my husband, we had, I guess I could say I married into debt. Not bad debt. He had 2 acres of land in Cedar City he was purchasing, so that was a monthly payment. He did put his tuition for college on credit cards, so that had some really high interest rates. And he had 2 cars, they were paid off, but the upkeep and some of those things. And he was trying to go to school, and life was bliss and wonderful. And then we were expecting our first child, and it was kind of, what do we do? Do we keep going through school? And with these debts, hindsight, we might have done things different, but we went ahead and he stopped going to school and went full time at Roadway as a truck driver, which he'd been doing as a part-time job since his mission. So we kind of raised our children on a truck driver's income, which, you know, doesn't really go up. I mean, it's a good paying when you start, but it doesn't go up. And our goal is to keep me home, and we did it. And so I want to just kind of go through some of those things that I learned and things that I wish I would have known when I took the self-reliance class. I was invited to take the Start and Grow Your Business for the first, as we were piloting it in our ward or our church. And that was awesome. I took that class and my business actually grew in numbers, just exponentially, I guess is the word I want. It just kept doubling, and just by living some of the principles that I was taught. So definitely a blessing. What I accredit that to is abundance, principle-based budgeting. We want to have enough of everything. What is your as a definition of abundance? Anybody?
I'd say it's having enough to go around.
Okay.
Plus
Enough to go around plus some. That's good. Ryan, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I would just really second that. I think just, you know, having enough to cover your basic needs and then be able to help those around you.
I love that you said that. You're right. That's one of the principal bases I want to touch on. But first is every budget needs income. Some of the people that came to the class, their income different. Everybody's budget looked different. Their income looked different. Do you look forward to payday? Sometimes it's like, yay, I'm getting money. But other times we kind of feel like this. We have mortgages, business conflict, poor leadership, debt deadline, stress, expectations, dentist bills, the car tire just went out, the refrigerators, I mean, everything for me seemed like it came in 3s and 4s, and they weren't little things. So a little overwhelming. What do you feel most people's attitude is about money? What are some common thoughts?
Oh, it's a really good question. It's interesting. There are so many, you know, different opinions, right? And everybody, whether it's based on experience or based on maybe lack of experience or just general understanding of how it works. And, you know, it's been fun just to see the contrast between our kids and how they view it, right? Our oldest is a saver. You know, he sends me a text the other day and says, Dad, you know, he's got some money in a savings account. And he says, hey, how much interest am I making on it? And I felt bad because I screenshotted it back and he's made like 1 cent of interest, right?
Right.
But it was neat to see that he's, you know, he's understanding how interest works and the value of that. And then his younger sister, you know, she's a spender, and it's pretty neat because she spends her money on everyone else, not herself. But just the other day she made a comment. She said, Dad, I really need to learn how to save my money, right? So I just, again, I think that everybody, you know, their views and, you know, maybe some of their customs or their way they go about it is a little bit different. And for me, I view it as just a, you know, I've learned over the years it comes and goes. I think it's just, you know, putting something realistic that can do everything you can to try to stay out of that bondage, right? And to not get stuck in that where you've made more commitments than you can keep.
Right.
And so kind of rambling there, but hopefully that gave you a little bit of what you're looking for, Leah.
No, I love it. I love it. How about you, Austin? Do you have any thoughts about people's attitude?
I think that just in speaking in general, as coming from the background of an attorney, where most attorney fights or lawsuits or things, at least that I've been involved in, are really money's involved to a decent extent. And there's obviously things that don't include it, but it fuels so much of conflict in this world. And I think that I've seen a lot of people look at money as either a status symbol or a way for them to evaluate their worth or to compare themselves to others. And to me, money helps fuel a lot of pride. So when we look at ways that people see money, again, I come from kind of a jaded perspective, but I see other people too, obviously, that are very good and generous and aren't attached to it. But I see people attach a lot of things and a lot of worth and symbolism to money. And I see a lot of problems that come out of that. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but just in general, how I see things or experience things on a fairly constant basis. People call me all the time. He owes me this much money. She hasn't paid me. And they always, everyone's statement to me is, it's not about the money. It's about the principle. But they owe me this much. It comes back quite often.
I love how you guys all touched on that. They touched on very important thoughts and ideas about money. We're gonna go through some of those. But attitude makes it really a difference on how we see it and how we utilize it. Now, if we go to, we think about it in our budgeting, how we're gonna spend that money, everybody's different. You have married, single, you have 1 or 2 incomes, you have different number of dependents, child support, other obligations. It's interesting raising our children, you kind of compare with other parents on what you spend your money on. Mostly it's the grocery bill. So how much do you spend on a grocery bill? And everybody was always amazed how I could get away with spending so little on my budget when I had so many kids. And honestly, I believe it's because of the principal basis that I was utilizing in my budget at that time. Here are some things that we tend to spend our money on. Take a minute and look at it and assess where your money is going to and what percentage you think is being utilized right now on your budget.
So do you have something to share there? An image? We're not seeing your screen at the moment.
You don't see it. Oh my goodness. Yep. It says tithing offerings, rent or mortgage, home utilities, transportation, savings, cell phone, entertainment. So if that's not showing, I'm sorry. I don't know why that's blank. It shows something on my screen. All right, then, so those are some things to think about. We'll go back real quick. Other things are restaurants, miscellaneous, insurance, groceries. So let me read those one more time. So if you're writing something down, where do you spend money on? Where do you give your money to, whether it's a church or a charitable organization? How much is going to rent or mortgage? Your home utilities, how much is to transportation, savings, cell phones, entertainment, restaurants, miscellaneous, and then there's your insurance and groceries, or some items that most people spend their money on. When I got married, my husband went to work and I did the bills. I never really had a lot of money to do bills with. I mean, I lived on my own, I had a job, and my money never really went too far. I pretty much paid for my rent, my gas, my food, and it was pretty much gone. Oh, and what I gave for my tithing to my church. So when I got married, I'm like, okay, I'm in charge of this responsibility because the checks are bigger than I've ever seen before. So I set aside a day where I would look at it every week and review my budget. And I set up the system. We didn't do this as a togetherness. He'd come home and I just kind of tell him what I did. My system was a piece of binder paper and I would just write it out. And the plan was to get us out of debt. I never had debt before, and so this was a new concept because my mom always said, you don't want to get in debt, you don't want to get in debt. And then I just kind of stuck to my plan. So I kind of on my own figured out, well, here's all these different debts, and we'll go into this later. And then I kind of used the snowball effect, but we'll go into that a little bit. But that's one of the things that came easy for me is faith, that by doing a budget and some of these principles, you just do it. You let the action prove itself. And one of my favorite ways to explain this was this expert here. Can you guys see this?
Yeah, so right now, I don't think you're on screen sharing. If you want, on your computer, if you have a Windows button, it's usually next to the Control or the Alt button.
Yeah.
It might pull up GoToMeeting for you again. You can go to GoToMeeting.
Okay. So have you not seen me this whole time?
Yeah, we haven't seen any of your screen this whole time.
Why
Except
did
for
you
you.
tell me that? You missed all this cool stuff. All right, where's my GoToMeeting?
We can see you. We can see you, Leah.
You can see me the whole time, but you can't see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you guys need to educate.
And next to your, maybe next to your mic or your camera button, I think there's a screen share, and I'm on a Mac. I don't know what kind of a computer you're on, but it hopefully is right there. There you go.
There you go. We can see that now.
Good job.
Well,
Sweet.
I am so sad. Okay, can I go back and just show you real quick?
Yeah, please.
Because this was like a really cool little presentation.
Oh, and there's a group. That's what we want to see right there.
So that's my family years ago. That they're no longer that little. Now, how do I
What a
get
cool
it?
picture.
And then this shows where is abundance and abiding by principle-based budgeting. And oops. And every budget needs an income. Do you look forward to payday? And and this is how usually I felt at one time in my life. And then our attitude. You missed the cute little teddy bear. Every budget is unique. We all have our different. And then now, can you see that? So you
Yes.
just, okay, so
Yes.
those are the different categories to look at. Go back. Plan and organize. I kind of like the little plant because when you plant, you kind of have to feed and water it and help it grow. And that's the same with our budget. We need to take care of it and utilize it. So set aside, and usually I definitely suggest meet with your spouse and go over it. Since we've done that this last 2 years, it's amazing what we get accomplished when we're both on the same page and just making the decisions together.
Hey, Leah,
Yes.
how do you, I mean, you had kind of mentioned, you know, it sounds like you're kind of the driver for it. You'll keep the Excel sheet or your app, the way you track things, or the ledger. How do you, you know, when you come to your husband, I mean, you just present your budget, you say these are the bills that we're paying, you talk about goals? Because that's one of the things, you know, I could definitely use some guidance on, or even some feedback on, is how to make that time productive, right? My wife and I, we set aside some time, you know, every week to do that. But I kind of walk away from it feeling like I drive the entire conversation, and my wife just says, okay, whatever you think, babe. So what have been some things that have helped you guys be successful in that?
So a lot of it is kind of similar. I just try and get him more question. I am the driver. I'm the one that says, hey, we need to sit down. He'll say, let's sit down and do it. But I'm the one that has to type it out and walk him through it. He'll have comments and thoughts that he wants to do. He's really big into, hey, I want food storage, or I want this, and I'm okay, but we need to budget for it. And so we have to sit here, and I mean, pretty much I come up with the plan and I execute it. I like to say that, yeah, we're all knitly together. We have different priorities. And so it's just pretty much, I just try and take in consideration what his priority is. And I don't know if I have an easy answer. I think
I'm sorry, it's a really hard question. So
it is, because everybody's different and it's a growth period. I mean, there was it before where he would do it for a while and he did it totally different than the way I did it. And then I'd switch, you know, depending on what kid came and what circumstances, we'd flop back and forth. What I appreciate that we learned is paying ourselves. We never did that before. And so it's nice to have him on that wagon with me, because he would just spend, and now we have goals. I'm like, we need to meet this $5,000 goal. That is our goal. And he'd look at it and said, we haven't done anything. I'm like, yes, we have. Look how far we came. You know, it's $100 more. We're here this week. It's $300 more. And he keeps looking at it like, there's no money. I'm like, compared to where we were, we have money. So to answer your question is listen a lot.
okay.
You know, I don't know how that works for her. You just give her a budget, and for me, I wrote out I want $200 a week for groceries, and that $200 a week, you know, it's not just grocery. It comes out if there's diapers for the grandbabies, or if there's toilet paper, or that's all part of my groceries. There's not extra for that, but I know that some weeks, and I do that on a cash base because I know if I have the card, I go over it, but I do my cash and I always have money left over. It's amazing how that.
Great idea.
So anyway, those are some of the things. My business, I run everything on QuickBooks. On our personal, I have an Excel sheet for all of ours. And I even just type in our savings and all our different savings and what the amounts are every week. So that's my plan, and that kind of helps him seeing, because he says, let's do a budget. He waits for me to pull it off. So I just have to have it all organized ready.
Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it.
So faith is doing something you don't understand it. And a lot of people I hear will say, I don't have enough money, or there's no money for that. And I agree. I mean, I had that concept forever. I would spend and there was just no extra. Learning this principle right here, faith by Bednar, was just powerful to me. So I'm gonna it's really short.
Taking action is the exercise of faith. The children of Israel are carrying the Ark of the Covenant. They come to the River Jordan. The promise is they will cross over on dry land. When does the water part? When their feet are wet. They walk into the river, act, power follows. The water parts. We oftentimes believe, okay, I'm going to have this perfect understanding, and then I'm going to transform that into what I do. I would suggest that we have enough to get started. We have a sense of the right direction. Faith is a principle, the principle of action and of power. True faith is focused in and on the Lord Jesus Christ and always leads to action.
So what are your thoughts about that, being a faith action and far as budgeting?
I think that for me, I've discovered that it's really easy to spend all my money that comes in. You know, there's so many things to buy in this world. There's so many problems to fix or situations to address. And to me, the faith side has really been a lot about recognizing that there's things that I really value. And I really want to make sure that I make those priorities first. And so, you know, with things related to religion, with tithing and charitable contributions and other things. I try and make that a high priority. But I found it amazing that at the times when I really double down and say, well, I'm going to pass up an opportunity to make money here because there's something that I value more, or I'm not going to buy that today because there's something I'm saving for that's of greater worth. I find there to be a lot of fulfillment in life, and it never ceases to amaze me how we end up doing things, how we end up paying off debts, or we end up finding a way or being fortunate to find something for far cheaper than we thought possible. Or I don't know, there's been so many little things along the way that I think faith to me says, once you recognize there's something of value, start to pursue it, make it a priority. And that principle of action, it becomes possible to achieve. And I would really love for my children for sure to understand that they can get to a good place in life, but it's not necessarily through money as the end. Money is just a means. And when we put our priorities elsewhere and exercise faith that there's something more important, the money side works itself out. I'm always reminded of an illustration I saw with, they took a tennis ball container with 3 tennis balls in it and they filled it with sand. And they said, now if you dump all this out, the tennis balls out and the sand out, and then they said if you take the sand and put it back in first, if those are the things of lower priority, but you do them first, then the 3 things of high priority, then they would go to put them in the tennis ball holder and they wouldn't all fit because the sand, the little things all fit around the bigger priority things. And so if you put the tennis balls in first and then the sand, it would fill in around it. But if you do the sand first, it fills up the bottom and then the tennis balls don't all fit in. And so to me, the principle of faith is make your priorities very straight on the budget. So this is what we want to do. This is what we need to do. And somehow all those other little things fall into place around the big priorities. But it doesn't happen if we don't believe it first.
So true. I love that. And that's how I look back. And it was, even though I didn't have all the principles in line, we were able to have that our needs met. And I always focus on just our needs. I didn't really focus on our wants because my belief was I couldn't have the wants because for me to stay home. But it was important that we did it. And in fact, I was telling my husband the other day, do you realize I have never contributed to a house payment, a utility bill at all our food? He has always provided those for these whole 31 years. To me, that's amazing. I mean, I may have babysat and got a kitchen table or some of those others, but for those basic living standards, he has always provided. And people say that's not possible, but I disagree that when you have that faith, it can. And so we'll keep going on to some of these. So some of the things we want to talk on really quick is giving is one of those principles, paying yourself, meeting your temporal needs, savings, the debts, cut it back, keep simple, schedule, something that's not overwhelming, make a buffer as a 0. I can't remember the other ones. Be kind and don't compare to yourself. So number 1, choose an organization you're committed to helping. Give 10 is when we make a living by, I can't read it. Can you guys read that for me? Oh yeah, there we go. Sorry. There we go. Go back up. Okay, why aren't you doing this? No, I do not want to leave the meeting. Oh my gosh. Can you see that?
Yeah, I'm happy to read it.
That would be great because I can't see it.
Okay, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. Winston Churchill.
I really like that because it's so good. It feels good to give to somebody else and to see them receive but anyway, I've always given a 10% for a quick review. When I was living on my own, I was 19 years old, and I went to the mall with some friends, and I saw this cute little dress in the window, but I really didn't have any money for it. But I did have my tithing that I hadn't paid yet. So I bought the dress with my tithing. And you may say this is coincidence, but I lost my job, my car broke down, and life just did not look very wonderful at that time. I took an account that I didn't put the Lord first. And these things happened. Not that he punished me, but I don't think I was receiving the blessings that I could have had. So I did have a little side business, a little makeup thing that I had invested in. So I started throwing parties and getting people to come and making the money. So I paid caught up and got my paying all tied up that I owed. I got a better job. My car got fixed for free, and life just started being so much better. So you can call it coincidence, but I call it faith. I learned a principle that by giving to God and trusting him, everything's going to fall into place. And so that's my little tidbit. This is a principle that most people have the same attitude as, I don't have money to pay myself. There's not enough money to pay myself. And going through this self-reliance program, I learned that we need to pay ourselves. And they suggest also pay yourself 10%, put into a fund. So like I said, some of the common reasons people don't save is I can't afford it. There's no money left. You don't understand. I hear this all the time. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. So in the singlemoms.com, they gave some possible reasons for saving. And one is build an emergency fund, which we have never had a 3-month emergency fund. Because we did this, we just hit our 3rd month. And we started a year and a half ago. So it took us that long, but now we can say, hey, if something happens, we know we can live comfortably for 3 months, or, you know, really tight. But I use it, I made it so it's like our normal living. So we could probably go a little bit more. Save for a down payment on a house, save for a car, save for retirement, save for your kids' college. I have some children just like you. They all differ on how they spend money, but I have one that she has an account for everything. And her car broke down. Well, it didn't break down. It was ready for to be re-registered, but the transmission, the engine light came on. She needed a new transmission. Well, she has been saving for a Jeep. She wanted a Jeep. And she thought, well, I can put that $3,000 and get my transmission fixed, and then it might be something else, or I can sell and take that extra money and put it towards my car fund. So she had enough to go in and buy this Jeep outright. Now, granted, she's living here, she's 24, and she's a cosmetologist. So all her tip money and everything just has accumulated and grown. But she took that priority. She has a vacation fund. She has a car fund. So she's done some of these things, do not touch, and been very, I mean, she'll come in and say, oh, I wish I could go out to eat. I'm like, no, like, I have no money. And she has more than her mom and dad. Like, we have no money. You want us to go spend our money, but she stuck to the principle of not touching it. And so that's something that I really admired about her, and learning that, yeah, I don't have money either. We're all going to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because we are not going to touch or do not touch fun. So it's a principle that really does work, and whatever else your goal is. So here are, of course, some things to save for. So besides your do not touch, your savings of wants. I want a new dress for my daughter for Easter, or different things like that. So you want to kind of put that aside. We never had a clothing budget, and it would just come out of whatever I could pull it from. And learning that if you have those budgets, so we did this, we set budgets aside, and now when my car needs new tires, it's crazy. I have money in there for the tires, and it never been that way. I always go to buy something or have a catastrophe, and I'm like, I can't do it. Or I buy the cheapest because it hasn't been funded. So this has all helped that. A vacation fund, HSA, I don't know why that's HSA. So the HSA, I don't know if you guys have these or being self-employed, you might not, but that has saved us tons to be able to take our dental bills and things out of that. That was another thing we never had budgeted. So when you go to the dentist, it's like, oh, it was, so this is really has helped us. So when you're meeting with your spouses and thinking, okay, what do we really want? What is our end goal? What are we shooting for? So ponder what your family goals are and then discuss what challenges. And this is stuff we're supposed to be doing, but since I dragged it out. But let's talk about that. What are some of the challenges you face by reaching your goals? Anybody, you guys have any challenges?
So Leah, just so I'm clear, so challenges in reaching the goals?
Yeah, is that what it's saying?
Or
Facing
yeah, okay. I think that, the biggest one is just staying disciplined, right? And sticking to the plan. And it's one thing, it's like you've articulated really well. It's one thing just to have faith and put the whole plan together, but it's another thing to grab a shovel and start digging, right? To move the mountain. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just keeping and remaining disciplined. And I can just speak for even the business. There's been times in my career that I, wasn't so disciplined, right? Where you look at even your business and you say, oh boy, we got paid on this. And you say, well, our daughter needs this, or we could definitely benefit from this. So we're going to take from the business and take care of these needs. And I learned really quickly that should never happen, right? And just, again, whether you've got the money in a savings account or, a bank account, it's you don't touch it. You stick to your plan and make it happen. So in short, I think it's just discipline.
Great idea. And I think along with that discipline, that's where that faith comes in. Knowing that if you stick to that discipline, you will find another way to meet that need. And we tend to get trusting in what we see and then what we can't see. And I think that's one of the biggest thing is taking that principle and knowing that if we do everything we need to do, that everything's going to fall into place. And some of these savings and things didn't come overnight. And like you said, we just had to wait and be patient. So I have a basement that has been torn apart for over 2 years. And we could have got a loan and gone in and did it. But right now, no, we just, a little bit comes in and we buy a little bit and we just do it. And it may take 2 more years before it's ever finished. But I feel that that's, it'll be worth it in the long run. Instead of paying all the extra interest and things like that. I could have it now, but in the long run, it doesn't add stress that if my husband loses a job, we don't have a payment that we can't afford. So, so thank you for those. Anybody else, any thoughts and ideas?
I think for us, our biggest challenge is the fact that a lot of times my husband and I both have businesses that aren't consistently making money, every single 2 weeks we don't get paid. And so sometimes it gets really challenging to figure out where to put the money and what needs to go here. And so keeping to a budget seems to be a big challenge for us.
That would be if you can't count on it. So what we did is we just had to get to a point that we had that savings there. So when we're making the money, we have an account that money goes into that's extra. So we have our basic budget. Let's say $600 is our basic budget. If he makes over that, let's say he brings home $800, that $200 goes into account so that we can do those basic things. Because right now we're just looking at, we need to make sure our utilities are paid, our rent's paid, those basics. So we want to make sure that there's an account there for that. And that means even in that budget, I have my savings. So I'm still putting to my vacation, maybe $10 a month, maybe $100. But I'm also taking anything that's over that 600 goes into account for those days that maybe he doesn't have work for a week. And we have money there to pay that. And that's separate from our 3 months emergency fund too. Now, I said, it's taken us almost 2.5 years to get to where we are now. And I was where we were, we just don't know what's coming in. But it's just taking that step of faith, knowing that I'm going to pay my contributions to my charity or favorite place that, you know, give back because I have, pay yourself, and then, you know, you can meet your temporal needs at that time. And by just doing those 3 things, everything else starts falling into place. So it's like Austin was saying about the tennis balls and the sand. You know, don't put your sand all at first. You have to put your tennis balls, and you got to believe that when you do those basic things, you give it back to God, you give it back to yourself, everything else is going to fill in there, and it does. And I can't tell you how or why, I just know it does. And so I know that's frustrating. My kids like, Mom, just explain. Like, it's a feeling. It's a principle I've lived, and I know it works. So thank you for sharing that. I hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you.
Yep. So debt, like I said, when I grew up, my parents were in debt, different things. My dad always found new opportunities, and he also had his own business. But some of the things we've learned is the exceptions for debt is to get a home, you know, a modest home, education, and a modest car. Right now, these kids, I'm looking at the challenges of them going out to buy a home, and I'm just floored by the prices that are being asked. When we bought our first home, it was $30,000, and I thought that was a lot of money. I mean, my husband's like, we could never buy a $100,000 home, and then we got into a $250,000 home. But now, looking at these prices, these kids aren't making what's out there, so it'll be interesting. But they don't have to look for the big, expensive home. They're looking for the modest and hopefully doable home. So that's something to keep in mind. Some of my kids did get an education and got in debt, and you know they're like, oh, this is taking forever. But what a grateful opportunity that they had a chance to do that. And not everybody can go buy a Jeep like my 24-year-old, but having a car is essential. So those are some of the exceptions. Avoid the credit cards. I had a son that they lived on their credit cards for almost a year, and like eating out or, you know, just different things. And now the stress and the bondage they're in, I like how Austin used the word bondage. So that's kind of what debt is to us. We're tied to somebody else. Watch out for those emotional purchases. What are some other areas we should avoid for debt and credit cards that catches us?
I know for me that I just see we have so many things to purchase in this world, and there's always something that can make our life simpler and more convenient. And even if we buy it with cash, I worked at a company once, and they started asking people to do some improper things. And at the end of the day, it was very difficult for people to say no because they're afraid of losing their job. And the company paid well, and a lot of the people were living within their means for that job, meaning they could meet their bills and things. But if they lost that level of income and had to go to a different job that paid less, they'd be in a world of hurt. And I think that as I've looked at life, there's literally just millions of things to buy. We can buy a song, we can buy a video. You can think that the dollar here doesn't matter and the dollar there, but they add up quite quickly. And so to me, on things to avoid, I just say just to, you know, don't purchase something unless it's getting you closer to your actual goals. You know, use your money as a means to progress in life, not as a means to just respond and say, oh, there's a new pair of shoes, and oh, there's this, and oh, there's that. Use your shoes till they're worn out. There's no reason you have to go buy a new one, unless, again, you know, maybe you're switching to a basketball career or something, so it's going to further your goals. Then sure, go get some new shoes. But to me, that one of the things to avoid is to recognize just unnecessary spending, even if we have the cash or the money for it at the moment. That's a habit that leads us quickly to a place where we just buy and buy and buy.
I like that. It's put things in check, put things in the priority like we've been talking about. Thank you. Next is, so getting out of debt, different ways we've heard about, maybe consolidating, calling your creditors, see if they can reduce the interest or some of the balance. I did the snowball effect when we were first married. I told you my husband had all these debts. I just paid the smallest one off, and I didn't even know that was a system. I just kind of did it and like, okay. So after that one's paid, I'm just rolling it over to the next one. And I got us out of debt, I think like 3 times. Sell what you can. They say, you know, look around, see if you anything of value and see if you can sell it and add it, you know, to paying, getting that debt down. Do you have some other ideas on how to get out of debt that you've experienced or used? No? Okay.
One thing we just barely did was there's unclaimed money that the Utah state is required to do. And it was really nice to look at that because there was over $1,000 there that I didn't know that I had because, and so we use that and we pay off debt with that. So that was another kind of a perk.
And those are those little blessings that we get.
Yeah, it
So
was.
oh, yay. I can tell you how many times there was a check in the mail for a rebate for something or a bonus that came that we weren't expecting. It just little things, or it's just amazing how it just creeps up. Or your bank gives you something that for I don't even know half the time we got things. There's a cool little hummingbird outside my window as well. Sorry, distraction. So the other thing about your budget, keep it simple. You know, work together as a family, consult with your kids. My mom would just always say, there never was any money, never any money. But we didn't understand that there was money coming in, but where it was going. And so the communication helping us understand, just like, oh, okay, so-and-so needs a new pair of shoes, you know, so we're saving for that. Or, you know, we wanted to do something special as a family and go out to eat this night because we're celebrating this. Make them a part of it, because then they can see that, yes, we have money, but there's priorities where it goes. So don't overdo it.
One quick question, if I may. So mom of 8, would you sit your kids down and would you show them the budget and where you were spending money and the income that came in and walking them through that?
What I did is I took Monopoly,
okay,
and I gave them their dad's income. I said, this is what we're working on. And then I had them pay me and say, okay, here's the house payment. Here's the utility, you know, gas, electricity. And they were like shocked how much was left, was there. I
very
probably
good
need
idea.
to my last 2, my 13, 15-year-old probably, because that was when I had all the older ones home. But but yeah, I think that's just really eye-opening. And it's important for them to see. In our home, if they want a license, or if they want a cell phone, they pay for it. They have to go get a job. You know, Jungle Gyms was paid most of my kids fun Burger King runs and their phone bills and their insurance. So it's
very neat. You teach them the value. I like it.
Yeah, and it's neat for them to have their own card and they budget. So I have a daughter right now who wants she just bought herself some cowboy boots and she saved up for that. And, you know, it's just important for them to see that we don't hand it to them. It's work. Work is one of the greatest principles I think we could teach our children, and that we don't do it for them. What they can do themselves, they should. And that is one thing I'm grateful that my kids do know how to work.
One question that I have when you're talking about keeping it simple, I've done different things. Excuse me. I've done different things, like, for example, sometimes I'll have a pretty intricate budget where I have even like the birthday budget and, you know, all Christmas budget and, you know, all different holiday budgets. And then other times I've done, I've done others where it's just like all holiday, birthday, everything all put together. And there's risk and benefits on both sides. You know, sometimes I might use it all up on Christmas and then don't have any for some of the other stuff. What's been your more successful way to do that?
Well, that you're hitting a tender spot, because I'm a practical person. So when it comes to birthdays, I have a hard time with any frivolous or fun little things. So everything's always simple and it has to apply to something that they'd be useful for. So I'm not a fun mom in that category. My idea of fun is let's go hiking. So I think that just is back down to the discipline. You know, for birthdays, I will spend $100 for their birthday, and that may that may be include the activity or whatever, but it's just $100 because that's what my budget. I'm not, you know, I'm grateful you're born. It was a great day, but I'm not going to go into debt for you. And so, so I think that's just kind of what works for us. I just kind of have a set amount, how much I'll spend, and then I work in that budget. So I know people will go spend $600-700, and I just can't do that. It's just not in me. So you just got to figure out what's your priority and what works for you, and just stick to it. That's my thoughts. So we aren't gonna have time for this activity, but if you know, I suggest writing down your basic budget, start with your income, and do those first things first. The tennis balls is your donation to your creator or a charitable organization, and then do 10 to yourself. And that is 10% that you will not touch. And if you can't do 10%, you don't have that much faith to believe that everything else is going to fall in place. It took me, I mean, I'm going to tell you, it took me probably 6 months to really realize I can do it. And it's just like, oh, I don't know, but it's something just to keep trying until you become comfortable with it. So keeping a minimum balance. So we just say $500. When we get down to $500, that's our zero balance. That way you're not running into overdraft fees, and it keeps you comfortable and safe. Some people it's $100, whatever it works for you, but always have a balance that you're not going to, you know, my daughter the other day got a message that she overdrafted. She goes, oh man, I didn't think about that not clearing. And so that saves you from those extra, paying that extra thing. So be happy, find joy, and don't compare. Don't compare with your neighbor or whoever has that. Just be happy with what you have. You're blessed for your needs and even I think your wants, if you remember to put that on the list and as you ponder it. And so just really quick, my story, I told you about the beginning we were married, but after we were married for 15 or so years, we had an opportunity for people started coming, found out we had really good credit, and we didn't think about why they didn't have good credit. And we started signing our name to help people out, start up a business and do different things. Well, the principle we didn't understand is we signed our name for something that we couldn't cover. And even though we got good checks for 2 years and things were good, when they stopped paying, we were left holding the bag. And we never thought, you know, we didn't think that one through, you know. So it took us 10 years, literally 10 years to repent and to change our ways to get back. I mean, we didn't really do anything different, but 10 years for making that decision to help others, but not realizing we signed something we should have been responsible for. So principle base is don't get yourself into something you can't afford to do. If you can't take care of, you can't afford to lose it, don't do it. My husband, before that happened, he broke his foot and had to have surgery. His business went on strike, and he had something else. But those 3 times, we never asked for any help, and we were sufficient, just even on our little budget, to take care of ourselves because we stuck to principles. And then it took us that 10 years after that bankruptcy to go back to realizing and repenting that principle base is a law and things we need to live by. It keeps us safe and it keeps us happy. So you can have abundance. It's in your budget. Set priorities. First thing is faith. And then be responsible, be a steward over what you're blessing and be wise. Debt, get out of it. There's options to getting out of bondage. And then future plan for your upcoming expense and be prepared. And that's what I have for you guys. Any questions or thoughts?
That was really good. Thanks, Leah.
You're welcome.
Thank
Very
you. I
good,
really
Leah.
appreciate your focus.
You're welcome. And join us on Mom of 8. You know, we got some good things going. So take all the volunteer help we can get. Get this up and rolling. It's a really good opportunity to help a lot of moms out there. So anyway, all right. Well, I will release it all. So Austin, do you do the recording or I just stop it and it's done?
Yeah, so I can take care of it here.
Okay, great. Thanks guys for joining me.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.